hermanitos, Funes.
A woman was cooking in her kitchen when she suddenly heard strange noises coming from the sink pipe. When her husband, Juan, returned home, he asked why she hadn't prepared the food. The woman told him about the strange sounds. Juan checked himself, but didn't hear anything. However, his wife insisted that she had heard people whispering, saying they were going to kill her. Juan assumed the noise was due to repairs in their neighbor's house, and told his wife not to overthink it and to rest. But later that night, when his wife went to the bathroom, Juan heard knocking from the other side of the wall. Who would be knocking on the wall at 5 a.m.? He thought. Annoyed, Juan told his neighbor to stop. But as soon as he tried to sleep again, the same noise returned. Frustrated, he went to his neighbor Walter's house and rang the doorbell. Someone opened the door, but no one spoke. Puzzled, Juan returned home. That's when he realized the actual noise was coming from his own bathroom. When he entered, he saw his wife thrashing around, colliding with the walls as if she were possessed. Juan desperately tried to stop her, but she kept hitting the walls uncontrollably. A little later, 3 people came to meet Juan: a forensic expert named Jano, a paranormal investigator, and a female professor. They clarified that they did not believe Juan had killed his wife. Instead, they wanted to know if anything strange had happened recently. After thinking for a while, Juan mentioned that his neighbor Walter had been acting very oddly in the past few days, making strange noises at night. Hearing this, the professor was shocked. It turned out Walter had contacted her a few days earlier, saying that strange incidents were happening in his house as well. A few days ago, Walter had started feeling that there was some invisible force in his home. This had been going on for months. He had called the professor, but at that time an assistant answered and told him to call again the next day. Whenever Walter returned home, he always felt like there was something under his bed. But whenever he looked, he found nothing. Thinking about it constantly kept him awake, and he couldn't sleep without sleeping pills. One night, while he was sleeping, his bed suddenly started shaking. Terrified, he peeked underneath, but there was nothing there. However, as soon as he lay back down, a shadow appeared right in front of him. At that moment, the room's light went out. When he tried to press the switch, nothing happened. He remembered that there was a plug under the bed. As soon as he inserted the cord into the socket, a strange shadow suddenly ran out of the room. Out of fear, Walter hid under his blanket and started praying to God. The next morning, when he woke up, the entire house was in complete disarray. He immediately called the professor again and told her that now the shadow wasn't just moving things, but was appearing in front of him as well. But the professor's assistant refused to help him again because Walter had no solid proof. That evening, Juan visited Walter's house and asked him about the knocking on the wall. Walter made an excuse that he was repairing his house. That night, Walter decided he needed to gather evidence. He bought a camera and set it up in his room in a way that it could record events happening at night. As soon as Walter fell asleep, a strange noise woke him up. Slowly, he peeked underneath the bed. Just then, his recording camera suddenly fell to the ground. When he looked toward the window, he saw a strange shadow. Terrified, he immediately turned on the light, but the shadow disappeared. He picked up his camera and began watching the recorded footage. In it, he saw that while he was sleeping, a terrifying figure was staring at him. Then slowly, it moved into the wardrobe, perhaps causing the camera to fall in the process. Shocked, Walter glanced toward the wardrobe. He was extremely frightened, but gathering his courage, he stepped forward and opened the wardrobe door. Inside, he only found his old clothes hanging, but when he replayed the video and rewound it a little, he realized that the strange shadow had actually emerged from under the bed. Suddenly, the wardrobe door opened on its own, and the ghostly figure was inside. Fearfully, Walter looked into the wardrobe, and in the reflection of his own gun, he saw that same shadow. He was about to pick up the gun when, all of a sudden, some invisible force slammed him to the ground. Then everything went silent. The next morning, a child accidentally wandered near Walter's house while playing football. He had only come inside to get some water. But Walter suddenly became furious and told the boy to leave immediately. Frightened, the child was about to run away when a speeding bus hit him. Hearing the loud crash, Juan rushed outside and saw that the child was Alicia's son, Alicia being another neighbor. He began calling out her name loudly. A while later, the police arrived and started investigating. The blood on the road was cleaned up and washed away, a detail that would later prove to be important. After the child's funeral, a question lingered in Juan's mind. He hadn't seen Walter for several days. Meanwhile, forensic expert Jano received a call from the police requesting his help in a mysterious case. When he arrived at the scene, he found that the woman who had reported the incident was none other than Alicia, whose son had been hit by a bus a few days earlier. Alicia told the police that she had heard strange noises outside her door, and when she looked, she saw unusual footprints in the shadow of a small child. Jano was not surprised by this and believed it was not a supernatural occurrence, but rather Alicia's imagination. He suspected that Alicia was unable to cope with her son's death and might have even dug up his body from the grave herself. As Jano and the police were discussing the situation, a glass of milk placed on the table suddenly fell on its own. This made Jano pause for a moment. He suggested that the child's body should be reburied immediately and that this incident should not be recorded in the police report. This was because the officer in charge, Fuse, was Alicia's ex-boyfriend. If it became known that Alicia had exhumed her son's body, she would be sent to a mental hospital. To avoid further complications, Jano advised Fuse to write in the report that the movement of the corpse was due to post-mortem muscle contractions. He also recommended giving Alicia some medication to help her stay calm. As Jano stepped out of the house, he noticed a woman standing across the street taking pictures of the scene. She looked familiar, so he approached her to talk. During their conversation, he realized she was none other than Professor Elbert, a researcher of supernatural phenomena. Jano asked her what she was doing there. Elbert said she had heard about the strange incidents happening in the area and had come to investigate them. She also mentioned that when she rang the doorbell of this house earlier, someone had opened the door, but no one had spoken from inside. Jano found this very strange. He told Professor Elbert that if she was researching paranormal events, she should join him in investigating the case. After this, Jano and Professor Elbert sat in the drawing room and began discussing the matter. Jano mentioned that he had been working as a forensic expert for the past 15 years, but he had never seen such a mysterious case before. Although he had encountered several paranormal incidents in his life, he believed that even if such events were real, they should not be unnecessarily sensationalized. Instead, it was better to resolve them peacefully. Professor Elbert completely agreed. Just then, a small child searching for his toy unknowingly passed through the open doorway and entered the room. By mistake, he saw the corpse placed there. As soon as his eyes fell on the body, its head suddenly turned toward him. Later, when Jano was shown an old photograph, he dismissed it as mere coincidence. However, Professor Elbert noticed a connection in it. She believed there was definitely a deep link between these three mysterious incidents. Suddenly, the loud scream of a child was heard from outside. When Elbert looked toward the door, she found it open and realized someone had entered. To be cautious, they placed the corpse inside a fridge, but they were unaware that the entire incident had been recorded on the child's camera. After this, Jano met police officer Fuse, and both decided that while the deceased's mother was asleep, they would dispose of the body. But as soon as they started moving the corpse, the refrigerator began to shake violently, as if someone inside was trying to get out. After this incident, Professor Elbert convinced Fuse to cooperate. By connecting the events chronologically, they discovered that these 3 cases had some deep connection. The police granted them permission to investigate, but they also needed Juan's written consent since part of the investigation had to take place inside his house. Juan had already given his approval. Now Fuse and Rosenthal went to Alicia's house with Elbert. However, Alicia had not paid her electricity bill for a long time, and the power had been cut off. Meanwhile, the forensic team went to the deceased child's house, which was directly opposite Walter's home. On the other hand, Professor Elbert set up scientific instruments to detect paranormal activity there. Due to the power outage in Alicia's house, Fuse asked the professor if they should restore the electricity, but Rosenthal refused. He believed that spirits were more active in the dark, and to uncover the truth behind this case, darkness was necessary. Strange events soon began to occur. When Fuse and Rosenthal reached the kitchen, they noticed some utensils mysteriously stuck to the top of the cupboard. As Rosenthal tried to touch one of them, a knife suddenly lifted into the air and inflicted a deep wound on his hand. As Fuse stepped forward to help, Rosenthal noticed something even more sinister. Something hidden inside the cupboard was feeding on his blood. Seeing this, Fuse immediately pulled out his gun, but Rosenthal stopped him from firing and instead began pulling the knife out of his own wound. Fuse then took Rosenthal to a safe place. While Rosenthal was cleaning his wound, Fuse realized that all the objects in the room were trembling. He wasn't surprised. He had already understood that these spirits were attracted to blood. Rosenthal immediately told him to clean the room. Meanwhile, Jano received a call from Fuse. Fuse said that he couldn't stay there any longer because he had seen something he couldn't explain. He also mentioned that he had a heart condition and couldn't endure such stress. As Jano was on the call, he saw something strange in his room's mirror. It seemed like someone was standing near his bed, but the figure was only visible in the reflection. Suddenly, the ghostly figure started emerging from the mirror, and at that moment, the call got disconnected. On the other hand, Professor Elbert also sensed something unusual. She saw a crack appearing on the wall. Meanwhile, Fuse found Rosenthal and told him he wanted to leave the place immediately. But just then, Rosenthal discovered a new clue and asked Fuse to look at it. When they checked under the bed, they didn't find anything unusual. But as soon as they turned to the other side, they were stunned. The entire room was filled with bizarre creatures. Rosenthal believed that darkness and light existed together in the same point in time and space. One just needed the right perspective to see them. Fuse struggled to keep his composure after witnessing this sight and immediately ran out of the house. But then he realized he should take Rosenthal with him. When Fuse reached the house where Jano was, he called out several times, but Jano did not respond. Just then, Fuse's eyes fell on the cupboard, where there was a fresh bloodstain in the shape of a hand. Gathering his courage, he opened the cupboard, but inside there were only some utensils and clothes. At that moment, he remembered Rosenthal's words. If you change your perspective, the truth will appear differently. As Fuse moved toward the edge of the cupboard, a loud explosion-like sound came from inside. Summoning his courage, he opened the door, and what he saw left him stunned. Inside the cupboard was none other than Jano. Judging by his condition, it was clear that he was no longer alive. Meanwhile, Professor Elbert was carefully examining the cracks in the wall when she discovered a man hiding there. This man was none other than Walter, who had been missing for a long time. Just then, Fuse arrived and explained that something terrible had happened to Al. He warned her not to believe anything that happened that night, because all of these events were being influenced by a supernatural force. Elbert then contacted Rosenthal and told him that the situation was now out of control and the investigation should be stopped immediately. But Rosenthal did not respond. The mystery was finally revealed when Albert explained that these ghostly entities were spreading through water. The child who had died in the accident had drunk water from that very house. When the police cleaned the accident site, they unknowingly drained the water into the sewers. This was why Juan's wife had started hearing strange noises in the kitchen. Just as Fuse and Albert were observing the cracks in the wall, a hand suddenly emerged from within, grabbing Albert. The sight was so terrifying that her heart began pounding violently, and she suffered a heart attack. At that moment, a demonic figure started emerging from the wall. Meanwhile, as Rosenthal was reviewing his camera recordings, the wardrobe behind him suddenly opened on its own. Seeing this, he was just as terrified as Albert. Somehow, Fuse managed to survive the horrifying night. When he regained consciousness, he saw that all the furniture in the room was moving on its own. Just then, someone arrived. It was none other than Alicia. Fuse pleaded for Alicia's help, but she was furious at him because she blamed him for harming her child. Alicia had seen a video recorded on the child's mobile phone, which showed Fuse hiding a corpse. However, after Fuse repeatedly begged her, Alicia softened. After all, they used to be in a relationship. As Fuse was about to get into the car, he suddenly saw the child's corpse, which shocked him and made him feel that Alicia had completely lost her mind. He immediately took another car and set off for the hospital. However, Professor Albert's sudden presence scared Fuse even more, prompting him to speed up. After driving some distance, he stopped by the roadside and used his radio transmitter to call his friend. Meanwhile, Alicia had reached the police station and filed a missing complaint for her child. The police had no other option but to share Fuse's location with her. They assumed Fuse was still investigating the houses, so they went there. But upon arrival, they found that Fuse's car was not there. When Fuse heard this over the radio, he immediately warned his colleagues to leave the place at once. But his colleagues replied, "We saw a forensic officer standing outside the house in a strange manner." Fuse ordered them to ignore it and leave immediately. However, after thinking for a while, Fuse decided he had to go back. When he arrived, he took 2 cans of petrol from the trunk of his car. His intention was to burn down the cursed house, so these mysterious forces could be eradicated forever. As soon as he reached the drawing room, he saw that Alicia had hanged herself. This sight shocked him deeply, but he composed himself and began sprinkling petrol throughout the house. When he struck a matchstick, it kept going out repeatedly. Suddenly, he realized that Jano was standing nearby, blowing out the flame each time. This scene terrified Fuse to his core. Without wasting any more time, he fired his revolver at the petrol, setting the house ablaze. The flames engulfed the building, and it burned fiercely. 5 years later, 3 strangers came to meet Juan. They asked him if he knew forensic expert Albert and the 2 professors. Juan nodded in agreement, but couldn't remember their names correctly. Then one of them told him that during an investigation, Juan had suddenly seen someone peeking through the window, but when the others turned around, there was nothing there. After that, Juan picked up a picture and revealed that it was a photograph of one Professor Rosenthal. Then, pointing toward the door, he said that Rosenthal's face was disfigured due to burns. As they all looked toward the door, a nearby chair suddenly started moving, and then swiftly flew into the air toward them. This is where the story ends.